Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 7 Part 18 based on novel. So let's start. 5 bright red ancient immortal yuan fruits emitted a gulp sound as they moved down Lin Dong's throat and were swallowed into his stomach. Ancient immortal yuan fruit. When Yao Ling saw this scene, there was not a tinge of shock in his eyes. Instead, he shook his head somewhat pitifully as he said, "Ignorant fool. Looks like you have never seen an ancient immortal yuan fruit before. Do you know how fierce and violent the energy contained within a fruit is? Swallowing 5 at the same time, forget about you, it is likely that even I would not be able to digest all of them. You might think that your action is fearsome, but it is merely just a foolish and rash act. What a stupid brat." Yao Ling's face had a cold smile as he stared at Lin Dong. Given the current situation, it was likely that he did not even need to take action. In fact, Lin Dong would likely be tormented by that wild and violent energy until he end up suffering a fate worse than death. Sulei, Luo Yi, and the rest beside him were also looking at Lin Dong in a mocking manner. It was as if they were looking forward to see just how miserable the latter would be after this. Is that so? However, Lin Dong, who had swallowed all 5 ancient immortal yuan fruits in front of their gloating eyes, slowly raised his head. A mocking expression flashed across his eyes, which had a faint green glow flowing within it. This energy is indeed violent. However, it is not enough to do anything to me, Lin Dong. Therefore, all of you may be disappointed. Lin Dong pressed his hands together. Following which, he placed his fingers together before numerous dazzling palm movements occurred. Soon after, a low and deep cry was emitted from his throat. Buzz buzz. Waves after waves of shockingly frightening energy fluctuations suddenly swept out from Lin Dong's body the moment his cry sounded. Even Lin Dong's skin turned red under this sweeping energy. "I look forward to watching you die." The cold smile in Yao Ling's eyes became richer when he saw this. "Suppress?" The seal formed by Lin Dong's hands changed in a lightning-like fashion. A low and deep voice also resounded within his heart. His voice was just like thunder that rumbled within his body. After which, the ancient universe formation that was suspended over his dantian started to tremble. Traces of light scattered from the ancient formation. It was just like an enormous net that directly covered the incomparably wild and violent crimson energy within Lin Dong's body. Bang bang. The floodwater-like crimson energy collided ruthlessly onto the large net. However, the latter did not even move a little as it firmly trapped it, causing the energy to be unable to escape or wreak havoc. Quieten down. Another warm light erupted. It transformed into a stone talisman that was suspended above the majestic energy. Numerous light poured down. Immediately, the violence that was within the majestic energy was also swiftly washed away. Swallow! Another low and deep cry sounded before a black ancient symbol appeared in a flash. Monstrous devouring power erupted like a black hole. Crash! The majestic bright red energy began pour into the black hole continuously. After which, it swallowed all the violence that was within it. Only then did it transform into a vigorous energy that followed Lin Dong's inner channels and began circulating across his body. With the help of the ancient universe formation, the mysterious stone talisman and the devouring ancestral symbol, Lin Dong had basically perfectly suppressed all the savage energy within the 5 ancient immortal yuan fruits. Of course, successfully suppressing it did not mean he could completely absorb them. Currently, Lin Dong was indeed unable to perform this step. What he wanted to do was not to use those 5 ancient immortal yuan fruits to raise his strength. Instead, he merely wanted a temporarily boost in strength. With this boost, he would possess fighting strength that was comparable to Yao Ling's group. However, it was extremely easy for this frightening energy that suddenly erupted to exceed the limit that one's body could endure. Once Lin Dong's physical body was unable to endure the assault from such an enormous energy, it would become just like a balloon and explode with a bang. The vast and mighty energy was like a torrent as it surged towards all of Lin Dong's limbs. Waves after waves of frightening energy also swiftly rose. Lin Dong could sense a piercing pain being emitted from within his veins. Green heaven materialized dragon skill. Lin Dong inhaled a deep breath of air as he sensed the activity within his meridians. An unusual green light suddenly surged out from deep within his eyes. The green light spread towards every part of Lin Dong's body. While the green light spread, some green scales actually quietly appeared on the inner walls within Lin Dong's body. These scales were just like a defensive layer that protected Lin Dong meridians. After these scales appeared, the painful bursting sensation from his meridians was immediately halved. Creak. Lin Dong's hands slowly clenched tightly. An excited arc appeared onto Lin Dong's face as he sensed the unprecedented formidable strength surging within his body. With the help of the 3 divine items within his body along with the superb strength of the green heaven materialized dragon skill, the frightening strength generated by 5 ancient immortal yuan fruits was now completely under his control. Although this would only last temporarily, Lin Dong would possess an unusually powerful strength during this period of time. Everyone, you ready? Lin Dong raised his eyes. Green light lingered within them as he stared at Yao Ling group, parted his mouth and smiled. This bastard. Yao Ling's group watched Lin Dong with gloomy expressions. The fluctuation around Lin Dong's body had soared several times. Meanwhile, there was also a rich disbelief under this gloominess. They were truly unable to believe that Lin Dong was actually able to suppress the energy from 5 ancient immortal yuan fruits. Yao Ling's eyes were dark and cold and some fear actually rose within his heart. The various feats done by Lin Dong caused him to feel uneasy. If this abnormally perverse fellow was allowed to keep growing, it was likely that he would become a major source of trouble in the future. Yao Ling looked at the young face of Lin Dong, which was filled with a fearsome expression. For some unknown reason, he suddenly remembered that other Dao sect disciple. That person was a truly vicious person who once charged up to Yuan Gate alone and killed 3 great elders. He must not be allowed to live. When he thought of this point, Yao Ling's heart was suddenly filled with chillness. His eyes flashed before the killing intent within his eyes flared. After which, his body moved and disappeared in a peculiar fashion. Lin Dong stepped on the empty air. A grayish glow surged within the demonic eye between his eyebrows. He looked at Yao Ling, who had disappeared, before the corner of his mouth immediately parted. Both his arms suddenly shook before green light surged. His hands swiftly shook before finally transforming 2 icy-cold fearsome-looking green dragon arms. Waves after waves of frightening energy were currently being channeled through both of his arms. Lin Dong's dragon hand gripped the immortal yuan ancient tree. In the next instant, he took a step forward and directly brandished the ancient tree. It violently smashed at the area in front of him. Squeak! The ancient tree tore through the air and emitted a sharp ear-piercing sound. That strength was almost lifelike. Bang! A fist that was wrapped around by a bright golden light also penetrated through the air and appeared in an unusual manner at the spot where the ancient tree was violently smashing towards. Finally, it carried an incomparably ferocious ripple before it clashed head-on with the ancient tree. A muffled thunder-like sound spread apart in the sky. Wild and violent hurricane-like energy ripples swept apart in a crazy manner before the surrounding mountains immediately cracked. Large rocks continuously rolled downwards. Kai? 2 human figures pulled back from the energy fluctuating point. It looked as if the 2 were of equal strength. With the help of the 5 ancient immortal yuan fruits, the current Lin Dong was actually able to fight head-on with Yao Ling. Worthy of being a 9 yuan nirvana stage expert. Lin Dong steadied his body. He raised his head and smiled towards Yao Ling. During the head-on collision, he finally understood the strength of a 9 yuan nirvana stage expert. If it was not because of the 5 ancient immortal yuan fruits energy supporting him, it was likely that Lin Dong would not be able to fight head-on with Yao Ling. It is a little too early to celebrate now. Brat, I will allow you to truly witness the strength of a 9 yuan nirvana stage expert. Yao Ling smiled in a dense manner before he clenched his fist. Vast and mighty yuan power gathered and directly formed a golden long spear. The spear was emitting an extremely fierce and brutal fluctuation. Kai! Yao Ling rushed out with a lightning-like speed. The long spear within his hand transformed into numerous spear shadows that covered Lin Dong in a storm-like manner. Swoosh! However, just when his spear shadow was about to reach Lin Dong's body, the latter suddenly moved and disappeared. Ah! Yao Ling heard a sharp miserable screech from behind him when Lin Dong's figure had just disappeared. He hurriedly turned his head only to see a 7 yuan nirvana stage expert from the Devil Seal mass being smashed by Lin Dong's ancient tree. Thanks to his frightening strength, he had actually directly smashed both of his hands into a blood pulp. Swoosh! After having swung the ancient tree explosively towards one of them, Lin Dong raised his head and revealed a ferocious smile towards Yao Ling. After which, he rushed towards another 7 yuan nirvana stage expert. Lin Dong did not plan to be entangled with Yao Ling from the beginning. After his strength surged explosively, the current him could kill all these 7 yuan nirvana stage experts. Since this was the case, he would naturally need to clear the place. He wanted to kill all these people until not even their souls remain. A horrified expression surfaced in the eyes of the other 7 yuan nirvana stage expert when he saw Lin Dong charging over towards him. However, he was also a ruthless individual and he did not retreat. Instead, he held a large blade in his hand. With a stern cry, a sharp blade glow violently hacked towards Lin Dong. Boom! The black large tree danced and directly shattered the blade glow. After which, it was accompanied by an enormous shadow as it violently smashed towards the 7 yuan nirvana stage expert's head. Immediately, his brains were blown apart. A bloody rain danced over the sky. Luo Yi, Sulei, and the rest looked at the young man, who was bathing in the bloody rain, with a shaken expression. At this moment, even they felt a chillness surging within their hearts. Little bastard! Your father will tear you into tens of thousands of pieces today. Yao Ling watched two of his subordinates being finished off by Lin Dong within the blink of an eye, before his eyes immediately became bloody red. After which, a roar that was filled with fury and churning murderous intent resounded in the sky. This ruthless person, who was ranked 4th on the sect wanted list, had finally completely erupted in fury at this moment because of Lin Dong. A mighty and wild yuan power swept out from Yao Ling's body in all directions at this moment. His eyes were unusually ferocious as he stared at the figure in the distance. The long spear in his hand shook suddenly. A buzzing sound appeared before 100 feet large spear glow directly penetrated through the empty air and flew explosively towards Lin Dong with a lightning-like speed. The speed of the spear was extremely rapid and it covered all of Lin Dong's escape paths in the blink of an eye, forcing him to once again halt his attack towards those weaker members of Devil Seal mass. He forcefully turned his body around and swung the black tree in his hand in a vicious manner. A shocking strength spluttered out. Even the invisible air was blasted apart by his strength, that seemed to possess an actual form. Boom! The two collided heavily. A shocking energy ripple spread apart wildly while being accompanied by a loud sound. Lin Dong's body trembled as he hurriedly retreated by over a dozen steps. The black tree in his hand danced before he stabilized his body. Following which, a grave expression flashed across his eyes. There was still a huge gap between him and Yao Ling. Even after he received a temporary boost in strength from swallowing 5 immortal yuan ancient fruits, there was still a small gap when compared with Yao Ling. Sulei, Luo Yi, attack together with me and kill this fellow. The others should gather together and lock down this place. Yao Ling stared at Lin Dong with a dark and cold gaze before crying out explosively. He had also calmed down after erupting in fury. Currently, Lin Dong's strength had clearly soared and a 7 yuan nirvana stage practitioner was unable to pose any threat towards him. In that case, it was better for him to take the initiative and get those subordinates, who were unable to provide much help, to withdraw. He believed that with his ability as well as Sulei and Luo Yi, who had both reached 8 yuan nirvana stage, it was likely that Lin Dong would have difficulty escaping regardless of how many tactics the latter had. Yes. Luo Yi and Sulei nodded upon hearing this. Their eyes flickered as they stared at Lin Dong with a fierce glint flickering in their eyes. Of course, there was currently some fear on top of this fearsome glint. The ruthless manner in which Lin Dong destroyed 2 7 yuan nirvana stage experts caused their hearts to quiver a little. Vast and mighty yuan power fluctuated and slowly surged out from the bodies of the Luo Yi duo. The latter's bodies moved and coincidentally formed a triangular formation together with Yao Ling, locking Lin Dong within it. Attack! A low and deep cry was suddenly emitted from Yao Ling's mouth. He took the lead and rushed forward as the long spear in his hand penetrated through the air. It carried a wild and violent ripple that could shred the Nirvana golden body of an 8-yuan Nirvana stage expert as it ruthlessly targeted all of Lin Dong's fatal spots. Luo Yi and Sulei also attacked when Yao Ling struck. Immediately, yuan power whistled in the sky. A chilling murderous aura completely engulfed Lin Dong. Lin Dong's eyes flickered. The enormous pressure that permeated towards him also caused his expression to turn extremely grave. When facing the combined attacks of a 9-yuan Nirvana stage along with 2 8-yuan Nirvana stage experts, any slight opening that he exposed would definitely lead to certain death. Desolate demon eye? A grey line was swiftly formed between Lin Dong's eyebrows. After which, it transformed into a grey demonic eye. The moment his demonic eye appeared, the grey light that contained an extremely frightening destructive force directly shot out explosively and collided head-on with the attack from the Yao Ling trio. Boom boom boom. Wild and violent energy fluctuation swept apart upon contact. However, as it was 1 against 3, the might of the desolate demon eye was clearly scattered significantly. Hence, it was unable to accomplish the same impact as before. Swoosh! However, Lin Dong was clearly not so naive to believe that the attacks from the Yao Ling trio could be blocked so easily. After the grey light rushed out, his body also suddenly pulled back explosively. His footsteps flashed and he appeared in front of Sulei. Yao Ling was the strongest amongst the three, while Luo Yi and Sulei were of equal strength. However, the latter was wounded by Lin Dong earlier and his aura was a little sluggish. Hence, he was considered to be the easiest person to deal with amongst the three of them. Humph! Sulei was also not a fool. The moment he saw Lin Dong's action, he was aware that the latter wanted to break through the formation from his side. Immediately, he let out a cold snort before majestic yuan power wildly gathered on his palms. There was a wild and violent force vaguely being emitted. Shattering yuan palm. Fierce and brutal energy gathered wildly. After which, a palm slammed viciously towards Lin Dong amidst Sulei's low and deep cry. Thunder rumbled wherever the palm attack passed. However, Lin Dong did not dodge in the face of this fierce and brutal palm attack from Sulei. Green light surged out from within his body before they quickly agglomerated into numerous green dragon scales on the surface of his body. Lin Dong did not show any signs of attacking after his dragon scales appeared. He took a step forward before his entire body slammed violently against Sulei. Bang bang. During the time that the green light surged, the shadow of a dragon seemed to be following behind Lin Dong. That collision seemed to possess a tremendous force that could even split mountains. Green dragon bump. A low and deep cry was suddenly transmitted into Sulei's ears as his eyes shrank abruptly. In the next moment, his formidable palm attack slammed directly onto Lin Dong's body, which was covered with green dragon scales. Bang! An energy ripple that was visible to the naked eye erupted and spread instantly after the collision occurred. The surrounding space became distorted because of that force. Sulei's expression suddenly changed when his palm slammed onto Lin Dong's body. At this moment, he finally sensed just how wild and violent the strength that was contained under the green scales was. Under that kind of force, the strength of Sulei's palm attack was quickly negated. Finally, it completely collapsed and disappeared in front of his extremely ugly expression. Grug. After his palm attack was dealt with, the strength of Lin Dong's bump came pouring forth without restraint. Immediately, Sulei's face turned pale almost instantly. A mouthful of fresh blood was spat out as his body flew backwards in a miserable manner. However, Lin Dong did not have the luxury of time to celebrate just because he wounded Sulei. This was because he could sense that during the split second when he attacked Sulei, Yao Ling and Luo Yi had already joined forces and attacked him. An unusually fearsome attack had targeted all the fatal spots on his back. Clearly, the two of them were also waiting for an opportunity like this to launch an attack. Only when one attacked, Would one end up exposing an opening, just like now? Lin Dong was unable to kill Sulei in a single strike. However, with the combined attacks of Yao Ling duo, all they needed was to target a single opening from Lin Dong in order to completely devastate him. "Brat, you're finished." Lin Dong's eyes glanced behind him. He could already see the ferocious expressions of Yao Ling duo behind. Their fierce attack was about to reach him. Huff. A mouthful of white vapor was exhaled deeply from Lin Dong's mouth. He glanced at the withdrawing Sulei, whose aura was sluggish. This was clearly the best opportunity to kill the latter. Lin Dong's eyes flickered rapidly. In the next instant, a bright green light suddenly erupted from within his body. After which, the green light gathered and formed a large green bell around his body. There were some green dragon tattoos on the surface of the bell. Unmoving green dragon bell. The large green bell was formed with lightning-like speed under Lin Dong's low voice. The fearsome combined attack from the Yao Ling duo also arrived the moment it was formed. Drill. A deafening sound erupted upon contact. That wild and violent strength that was filled with murderous intent also arrived together with it. Bang! Cracked lines spread across the large green bell rapidly. Finally, it emitted a loud bang and was forcefully blasted apart. Countless green light shot out. An enormous strength came overflowing from all directions. Lin Dong also borrowed this momentum to retreat. In a flash, he appeared in front of Sulei, amidst the shocked and furious gazes of the Yao Ling's duo. "It's over." Lin Dong's eyes stared at Sulei's pale face, while an indifferent arc was lifted on his face. "I want to see how you are going to kill me." Even though his aura was currently sluggish, Sulei was also no pushover. He was aware that all he had to do was to delay Lin Dong for a moment. After which, the Yao Ling duo's combined attack would be able to kill the latter. Hence, he maneuvered the yuan power within his body in a crazy fashion. Bright golden light erupted from within his body. Clearly, he had pushed his nirvana golden body to its limit. With such a defense, it was likely that even Lin Dong would not be able to kill him with a single blow. However, Sulei saw a ridicule flashing across Lin Dong's eyes when he prepared his defense. In the next instant, he saw Lin Dong extending his hand towards him. On his palm, a golden glow flashed, before a palm-sized large golden wheel appeared. Sulei's eyes shrunk immediately when that golden wheel suddenly appeared. A feeling of death quietly bubbled in his heart. No. A hoarse cry had yet to be fully emitted from within Sulei's throat when it suddenly halted. The golden light wheel shot out from Lin Dong's hand. After which, it quickly slashed Sulei's throat with a speed that could not be sensed. A bright red blood trail appeared. When the golden light flashed past, Sulei's maximum output nirvana golden body seemed to have totally lost all effect. Under the fine golden light, his seemingly sturdy and powerful golden body was as weak and frail as tofu. Fresh blood spurted out and reflected Sulei's pupils, which were now filled with fear and disbelief. He simply could not imagine how Lin Dong was able to break his nirvana golden body with such ease. After all, his body had undergone the tempering of 8 nirvana tribulations. However, Lin Dong did not care about the Sulei's dread-filled eyes, which were gradually being filled with a greyish color. With a clench of his fist, the blurry golden light disappeared into the center of his palm. Swoosh! The life within Sulei's eyes rapidly faded, while the vigorous yuan power gushing around his body completely crumbled. Promptly, his body started to fall from the sky. Lin Dong watched Sulei's descending corpse. His eyes flashed as he moved forward and grabbed it. Following which, devouring force stealthily erupted from the center of his palm. Kai Kai! In the face of this devouring force, strand after strand of weak golden light flew out from Sulei's corpse. These strands of golden light swiftly gushed into Lin Dong's body through the center of his palm. Bang! After the last strand of golden light was devoured by Lin Dong, his palm slapped down on Sulei's chest, directly pushing him into the sea of trees below. As the corpse sunk into the sea of trees below, this notorious villain of the Blood Rock grounds was finally killed by Lin Dong at this location. Lin Dong stared as the corpse disappeared into the sea of trees, before he gently tightened his fists. Generally speaking, after a Nirvana stage expert underwent the 7th Nirvana tribulation, a strand of Yuan spirit chi would be born within the Yuan power in his body. Although this bit of Yuan spirit chi was insufficient to create a Yuan spirit, it would still introduce an element of uncertainty. Lin Dong naturally wanted to get rid of any problems in the future. That was why he directly took action and used devouring force to completely devour the strands of Yuan spirit chi within Sulei's body. On the other hand, although that dragon Yuan wheel within Lin Dong's body was extremely powerful, it was formed from Yuan spirit chi. Hence, it would weaken every time he used it. Since Lin Dong was currently unable to generate Yuan spirit chi within his body, he could only rob from others. One down. After finishing off Sulei, Lin Dong slowly turned around. He proceeded to stare at Yao Ling and the rest, who were staring in shock at Sulei's corpse, before he shot a grin filled with iciness towards the two of them. "You actually killed Sulei?" Yao Ling's face twitched violently, a trace of shock lingering in his eyes as they gradually turned scarlet red. Due to Lin Dong's speed, the two of them had not discovered the golden wheel which pierced Sulei's throat. Luo Yi's expression had now turned extremely solemn. On top of that serious expression was a tinge of unease. His strength was on par with Sulei. Since Lin Dong was able to kill Sulei, this indicated that Lin Dong would be able to kill him as well. This guy. Luo Yi's face trembled. When he looked at that young man, who had a smile on his youthful face, with dragon-like arms holding a gigantic black tree, he secretly felt like retreating. For some unknown reason, he felt unease curling around his heart. He can only blame himself. Lin Dong smiled at the now scarlet-eyed Yao Ling as he casually remarked. He was no benevolent individual. If these people did not provoke him, he would not bother them. However, since things had progressed to such a stage, he was not going to be foolish enough to show benevolence to them. Should a chance present itself, he would definitely deliver a lethal blow. Who? After he heard Lin Dong's words, the maliciousness in Yao Ling's eyes intensified as he stared right back at Lin Dong. Taking in a deep breath of air, he calmed himself. However, under that tranquility, Lin Dong could sense a tyrannical murderous aura that was akin to a volcano that was about to erupt. "Brat, it's my fault for underestimating you from the start. Else this would not have happened." Yao Ling's voice was extremely gloomy, but he was not angry. Instead, it was filled with bitter resentment and venom. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed a little as he slowly tightened his grip on the black ancient tree in his hand and gradually became more vigilant. Even the current him could feel a fluctuation from Yao Ling's body that caused his heart to tremble. However, it is all over now. With an indifferent expression, Yao Ling slowly walked forward. Behind him, Luo Yi stared at Yao Ling's back as his expression started to change a little. The next moment, he unexpectedly stopped moving forward and instead turned around and quickly retreated. At the same time, the expressions on the other Devil Seal mass members turned solemn, and they rapidly retreated far away from Yao Ling. Yao Ling did not care about those who were retreating. His incomparably dark and sinister gaze was locked onto Lin Dong. A merciless grin appeared on his face as he placed his palms together, before rapidly forming strange seals one after another at lightning speed. Buzz. Following Yao Ling's hand seals, the yuan power surrounded his body started to surge. A suffocating and stifling fluctuation gradually spread out from Yao Ling. "Lin Dong, next, I'll let you experience the elite martial arts of my Yuan Gate." The cruel grin of Yao Ling grew wider. In the next instant, a deep rumbling sound suddenly erupted from his mouth, demonic Yuan cursed body. Boom! Ruthless yet majestic Yuan power suddenly surged out from Yao Ling's body the instant he roared. Following the surge of Yuan power, Yao Ling's body started to expand. All the muscles within his body squirmed while his veins were like small snakes as they extended across the surface of his body. Kai Kai! A piercing sound akin to flesh being ripped apart rang out, while a somewhat pained expression appeared on Yao Ling's face. However, this was unable to mask his cruel expression. It was as if he could already visualize the scene where Lin Dong was being ripped into shreds. Following the expansion of his body, black patterns started to appear on Yao Ling's body. The pattern seemed to be similar to ancient runes and it looked as if they had grown out of his flesh. When seen from far, they looked extremely strange and mysterious. Within a span of a few breaths, Yao Ling's body had expanded to twice its original size, making him look like a small-sized giant. Black runes covered his body, and coupled with his scarlet-red eyes, it made Yao Ling look like a barbarian from ancient times that was brimming with ruthlessness and cruelty. Bang! With a face filled with rune-like characters, Yao Ling shot an evil grin at Lin Dong before he ferociously taking a step forward. Instantly, his body mysteriously disappeared. His speed was in a complete contrast with the size of his body. The moment Yao Ling disappeared, Lin Dong's pupils abruptly contracted. In the next instant, he forcefully twisted his body and violent smashed down on the space behind him with the ancient immortal yuan tree and his dragon arms. Bang! Space fractured as a fist fully covered in black symbols directly ruptured space and slammed against the black ancient tree. Frightening amounts of energy crazily poured out from the resulting impact. The resulting energy engulfed and swept over Lin Dong, causing him to catapult backwards. The hand with which he held onto the ancient immortal yuan tree started to tremble continuously. Meanwhile, the dragon scales on his arm sparkled with green light as they tried to dissipate that terrifying force. After unleashing his so-called demonic yuan-cursed body, it was evident that Yao Ling's strength had increased by about 30%. His resulting strength caused even Lin Dong to feel fearful. Cursed Yuan Seal. After knocking Lin Dong away with a single punch, the evil grin on Yao Ling's face grew even wider. Forming a mysterious sealing technique with his hands, it took the shape of a fist imprint, which he sent blasting forward. Swoosh! An overwhelming amount of yuan power frantically gathered and materialized into a lifelike fist imprint. Whistling across the sky, it descended upon Lin Dong. Buzz! Lin Dong's expression turned extremely solemn as he gazed at the incoming fist imprint that contained a frightening fluctuation. Torrential grey light howled out of Lin Dong's forehead as grey clouds gathered together and the gigantic Huang beast was summoned once again. Rustle! The gigantic tail of the Huang beast ferociously whipped downwards, bringing with it a dreadful grey light that blotted the sky, before it violently slammed against the gigantic fist imprint. Bang! Berserk undulations swept outwards, causing Lin Dong to retreat explosively. He landed on the top of the Huang beast's head and slowly sat down. As he bit his fingertip, fresh blood started flowing out. In the end, he pressed his bleeding finger on the gigantic closed eye of the Huang beast. Since you want to go all out, I'll accompany you till the end. Fresh red blood spread out on the giant eye like a net, an extremely mysterious and strange sight. Lin Dong gazed down upon Yao Ling, whose body was currently enveloped by ruthless undulations. Within his slow and unhurried words was an abundance of ferocity. Promptly, his hand seals changed. Spirit of the desolate beast, blood sacrifice. This video will end here.